Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Eric Zussman, and I am a research director at the Institute for Global Environmental Strategies in Hayama, Japan. I hope everybody is doing well and enjoying our virtual interactive learning event. I'm here to serve as the moderator for our panel today on showcasing low-cost nudges in citizen science, a good practice exhibition. And because I'd like to move things along, I'd like to start off by sharing a presentation which will hopefully structure our discussion today. And so toward that end, please let me share my screen. Okay, so I just want to highlight that please be reminded that this whole event is recorded. Participants are requested to send their questions and comments via the Q&A and chat box. And facilitators or resource speakers, they'll respond via chat or live. And if time permits, they'll respond actually within the session. Also note that for those of you who speak language other than English, there's an interpretation function that's available. And you can click that logo that looks like a headset on the lower right-hand side of the screen, and then choose the relevant language. And if you are experiencing slow internet, please click the icon that's labeled HD and change it to LD. So those are some event reminders. And now, without further ado, I'd like to set the scene for today's discussion. And the first thing that I'd like to highlight is you'll notice featured prominently in the title of our panel and session is this idea of nudges. And this will help, I think, structure our discussion. This idea of nudges actually came around about 12 years ago or so with the publication of a book authored by a famous economist and from the University of Chicago, Richard Thaler, and his colleague, who's now a professor at Harvard University, Sunstein. And what they were really trying to focus on is how you can change individuals' behavior, but not doing so with economics, or at least conventional economics. And what they began to do is borrow from psychology and what they call behavioral economics to think about ways you could change a decision-making environment and change that environment in a way that would change people's behavior predictably, but not changing their economic incentives. And a lot of the emphasis in the way that they approached this was on changing what they called the choice architecture, the way that choices are structured for individuals so that they would make decisions that are, to use the title of their book, that would improve their health, their wealth, and their happiness. And what we see, I say, over the past, especially 5 years, but since this book is published, that there's a growing emphasis also on sustainability. And let me give you some just framing that will help understand these different types of mechanisms that promote nudges. Okay, so there are 4 main types of nudge mechanisms. There's the simplification and framing of information, which we'll discuss, I think, throughout today's panel. And just to give you an example from residential energy efficiency. So this can include, for instance, feedback on energy consumption, such as information on your energy bills or on energy meters. Can also include things like energy labeling on appliances. There can also be changes to the physical environment. So you can change the way that homes are structured or appliances are structured to promote sustainable behavior. There can also be changes to what they call the default option. So, for instance, the way that when you pick different programs, government programs, a lot of times if you want to do something that's sustainable, you actually have to make a special selection that's more green or saves more energy. But if you change the way that those decisions are structured so that the actual default is that green, for instance, energy saving option, or using a smart grid or using renewables, if that's the default, if that's the option that you choose automatically without having to change anything, then that leads to more sustainable behavior. And then the sort of last group is what they call this use of descriptive and social norms. So I think we're going to hear a lot about using, citizen science to try to promote changes in behavior, especially with air pollution monitoring and low-cost sensors. I would say that category of activities fits here, where you're actually trying to compare how you do across different communities, cities, what have you, with a packaging of information, and this can promote changes in both your own individual behavior, but it can also motivate governments to change their policies. What I want to emphasize here is these nudge mechanisms, they're complements, they're not replacements for policy changes. And so it requires working hand in hand a lot of times with governments to promote these things and find good complementarities. And just to give you a few more concrete examples of some nudges that are, good for health and also good for air quality and good for climate change. So, for instance, this illustration right here of the subway system in Hamburg in Germany. So it's laid out like a track, right? And this is supposed to motivate people to climb up and down the stairs rather than taking the escalator. You can see similar types of approaches in some cities. They've actually put up pianos where if you jump onto different steps, it plays a song, right? So this motivates you to use the stairs, right? Similarly, another approach that is an example of a nudge is changing the size of a plate, especially in hotels or restaurants. By changing the plate size, you can motivate people to consume less food and also waste less food. And of course, the food waste contributes to methane, which can contribute to air quality problems as well as climate change problems. These are just a few classic examples of nudges that have some environmentally sustainable impacts, which also relate to air quality and climate change, and obviously people's behavior. The last point I'd like to raise is this: a nudge approach has, as I mentioned, it started, approximately 12 years ago with the publication of this book, or at least that book really put it um, on the map. But as we can see, it's expanded a great deal, and so you now have uh, governments, research institutes, universities throughout the world that are promoting this approach. And we see this also, for instance, in Asia, where, in Japan, we have our own nudge unit. There's quite a few research institutes in Singapore that are promoting this approach too. So there's growing interest in nudges and behavioral changes, but we haven't made very concrete linkages between that interest, I'd say, and the air pollution and climate change community. So by making that linkage, I think we also are promoting this sort of more integrated and inclusive approach that sits at the core of today's discussion. So without further ado, and before we go into the panel discussion, I believe we do have a short video that's going to be played from our colleagues Shaira at Clean Air Asia. And then I will turn it over to our colleague, Ms. Alta, from UNICEF in Mongolia to handle our panel discussion. But I think at this point, let's go over to the video. So video, please.
Thank you, Eric, for that introduction. I'm Shira Panela of Cleaner Asia, and I'd like to share with you the project of Cleaner Asia on citizen science. So, Cleaner Asia has this social media campaign called Care for Clean Air, and part of it is a citizen science initiative where we would like to raise awareness about air quality issues and climate change on social media. So, this citizen science initiative is focused on raising awareness about air quality and by making people care about air pollution situation in their respective cities. We're hoping that once the public is more aware about air quality, it will be easier to nudge them toward better behavior. In this project, we ask the public to gather photos of air quality in their respective areas, and these photos are envisioned to be mapped out together with validated air quality information as a form of observation of air quality situation in their cities. The photos will help validate pollution level and identify sources in their respective areas. This project was launched initially during the International Day of Clean Air for Blue Skies in September 7. And we're still in the process of refining the mechanism, the mechanics, and engaging partners to better promote this initiative. Initially, we're targeting to promote this in Metro Manila in the Philippines and expand this across Asia. So, without further ado, we would like to present you a short video about the Citizen Science Initiative called Skywatch. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much for that, Shaira, and that's really encouraging the work that Clean Air Asia is doing in this space to motivate people to assess air quality and also to motivate governments to do more in this area. So I think this is a really promising entry point for us to begin our panel discussion. And then, without further ado, I'd like to turn the panel discussion over to our colleague, Mrs. Alta from UNICEF Mongolia. She is a program manager there who has a significant experience working on issues of air quality and especially children's health. And Ms. Alta will moderate our panel discussion with four quite not only distinguished but experienced colleagues. So, Ms. Alta, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Eric. Hi, colleagues. Good afternoon. My name is Alta Satnam Sereng. Shortly, I'm Alta, and I'm the Climate Change and Clean Air Program Specialist at UNICEF Mongolia. So, in this panel discussion, we share our experience of social and community groups on promoting behavioral changes that use science and information to really reduce air pollution and exposure to air pollution. So, I am inviting the panelists now. Professor Philip Meisman, Project Coordinator, University of Antwerp. Professor. And Mr. Arif Dermawan, Malang City, ASEAN, Environmentally Sustainable Cities, Project Focal Point. Thanks, Arif. Ms. Penchom Saitang, Executive Director, Ecological Alert and Recovery Thailand Earth. Thank you, Pinchom. So we have not much time, but first of all, I would like to ask each of you to briefly introduce yourself and your citizen science initiative. So you are given only 2-3 minutes. Professor Mason, may I start with you?
Thank you very much for inviting me to this meeting. I'd like to share a few slides of our project, which is called Curious Noses. And so I'm a professor here at the University in Antwerp in West Northwest Europe. And our project is called Curious Noses, or being nosy, being curious about air quality. And basically, we are quite ambitious. We want to be big and we want to have impact. And essentially, being a scientist, I want to cover a whole country with dots, locations where the air quality is being measured. And here you see a map of Belgium, you see the North Sea, and here you see 20,000 locations where citizens have measured the air quality for us. And there's good reasons to be big. One is that okay, here you see the air quality was measured by basically a real estate panel that people attached to the window to the front of their house, and it stayed there for 4 weeks. And then afterwards, there were some sensors. They sent it back. We analyzed and we measured the air quality. I can talk more about this, but basically we had a measurement network of 20,000 of these air quality stations across the country. And why do we want to be big? Well, we want to be big because we're scientists. We need these data to assess the impact of air quality on the health of people. So we need these measurements. Air quality is so much variable between streets, between neighborhoods, between cities, that we need a lot of data to have a decent, solid insight into the air quality and how many people are exposed to concentrations that exceed legal limits. And we've done this in Belgium. We've collected, this is a massive and a unique data set from which scientists we can build on. The second reason why we want to be big is that we want to have impact on society. We want to have, and in the Curious Noses project, essentially we combine citizen science with nudging. We are doing nudging during the project, and I can talk more about this. How do we do this? But because we need so many participants, we need to go beyond the traditional audience of highly educated, technically oriented male audience which typically participate in citizen science project. And we need to be much broader. We need to have normal people, my mother, my daughter. Those are the people that I want to join the project. And this way we create large-scale awareness. This way we are very visible, also in the media. Politicians know about it, and that's why we can do nudging. That's why we can do behavioral change. And I'd like to talk about this further in the discussion. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Uh,
Thank you, Professor. It's amazing to reach 20,000. That's a big number. So, Mr. Eric, may I ask you to introduce yourself and your project? You are muted, I think.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Selamat sore in bahasa. Saya Arif Dermawan, Kepala Unit Pelaksana Teknis Pengolahan Air Limbah, dewatering. So, kegiatan kami di Kota Malang adalah mencoba melocalizing Sustainable Development Goals tentang perubahan iklim dan kualitas udara dalam aksi lokal. So kita mencoba melocalizing Sustainable Development Goals dengan teknik kami menerjemahkan measurement, reporting, dan verification agar kita bisa tetap mengukur kualitas udara dan kualitas udara terutama PM2.5 di kota kami melalui kegiatan yang dilakukan oleh rekan-rekan kita di sekolah-sekolah, karena kita punya lebih dari 60 perguruan tinggi di Kota Malang ini. Tapi kita memanfaatkan sekolah-sekolah menengah pertama hingga sekolah menengah atas. Mungkin akan saya tampilkan sedikit presentasinya. Jadi program kami namanya adalah pembangunan rendah karbon oleh para pemuda. Latar belakang kami melakukan kegiatan ini adalah isu atau problem yang berkaitan dengan kualitas udara. Laju pertambahan kendaraan di Kota Malang cukup tinggi, meningkat pesat. Kemudian, kemudian jumlah kasus kematian di Kota Malang selama 3 tahun berturut-turut, yaitu selama 3 tahun berturut-turut, itu yang tertinggi ternyata adalah infeksi acute respiratory infection. Jadi mulai tahun 2017 hingga tahun 2019 penyakit tertinggi di Kota Malang itu adalah ISPA atau penyakit infeksi saluran pernapasan. Untuk itu kita coba concern tentang kualitas udara ini yang berkaitan langsung dengan penyakit saluran pernafasan atas. Ini aktivitas kita adalah mencoba mengumpulkan data kualitas udara yang dilakukan oleh anak-anak sekolah dalam konteks kegiatan mitigasi perubahan iklim. Harapannya kegiatan ini dapat meningkatkan kepedulian rekan-rekan kita tentang perubahan iklim sebagai aktivitas lokal menggunakan alat ukur kualitas udara low cost air quality monitoring. Ini kegiatan kami. Kami Jadi kegiatan kami ini adalah mencoba membreakdown 6 isu utama dari melaksanakan MRV, Measurement Reporting and Verifikasi, terutama adalah kita tidak memiliki data tentang kualitas udara, kemudian kapasitas teknik kita yang terbatas, tapi yang terutama adalah kita bisa meningkatkan kepedulian terhadap kualitas udara di sekitar kita. Untuk pengumpulan datanya, kita masuk ke dalam website yang ada di Arema Climate Care Organization itu. Di sana kita mencoba men-share data-data yang kita kumpulkan. Harapan kami, kegiatan ini juga melibatkan banyak pihak dari Bappenas di tingkat nasional, bahkan juga kita melibatkan pemerintah daerah yang berkepentingan dengan kualitas lingkungan hidup. Saya kira itu yang bisa saya tampilkan. Terima kasih. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Arif. So now I'm inviting Ms. Pincham to introduce yourself and your initiative.
Yeah, thank you. Let me share my screen. Yeah. Good morning. Good afternoon, everyone. Can you see my screen on?
Yes.
Can you see? Can you see the screen right now?
Yes.
Okay.
We see your screen. We hear you very well.
Yeah. First of all, I would like to talk about the organization. My organization activity. Mainly, Earth has focused on industrial pollution impact on people and environment. And we launched the first project of industrial pollution watch in 1998. And then we established Earth Foundation in 2009. Most of the activities that we have done, including the policy monitoring and advocacy, community support, and environmental monitoring training for community. And we also conduct some actions researches for environment and health. Concerning to the air pollution monitoring, since we mainly focused on industrial impact in the industrial development area, and in recent years, Thailand has faced with a serious problem with PM 2.5. So we conduct a pilot program to monitor the PM 2.5 in the industrial development zone in Samut Sakhon province. Samut Sakhon is in a central region, and it is one of the coastal province near Bangkok. This being implemented under the Green Samut Sakhon project since 2020 and 2021. We set up a monitoring network with schools, health promoting hospital in sub-district, and local administrative organizations. Also conduct an initial study about PM 2.5 sources, emission sources. And for PM 2.5 monitoring network, we have developed a mobile application and installing 10 PM 2.5 sensors to detect the level and concentration of PM 2.5 in 3 sub-districts by installing the device at some schools, local administrative office, and some private companies. At the same time, we organized educational training and set up the PM 2.5 monitoring network in Samut Sakhon province. And Also, we have other sustainable-oriented activities aiming to reduce some emissions from waste management and industrial pollution emission. And another activity that we have done is about conduct academic study of emissions from industrial source. This is an academic study conducted by a research team by some professors from Chulalongkorn University. We conduct the study because Samut Sakhon province is one of the top 10 of PM 2.5 cities ranked by Greenpeace Southeast Asia. So Samut Sakhon province has the PM 2.5 crisis. It is one of a small number of province in Thailand that have PM 2.5 crisis. And we conduct the study by select top 5 of new industrial license to study in depth about the emission from the factories in this province. Moreover, in this year, we start a new project to conduct a preliminary study about PM 2.5 in industrial areas and to look into some aspect of potential health risks related to air pollution, particularly the PM 2.5. This being initiated because of in my foundation, there have been increasing complaints made from communities sending to us. The communities who live neighboring with recycling and waste management facilities. And we also observe the increasing severity of air pollution and PM 2.5 in Thailand, particularly in those in industrial development area. And there are just quite serious health impact happening with the local people. At the same time, we also observed there have been lab studies about the PM 2.5 related to the industrial sources in Thailand. So these are what we want to do in regarding to the air pollution monitoring. Moreover, we also expand our citizen science activities in some other provinces to study about the contamination related to industrial emission. So these are part of the activity we have done under the name of Earth Foundation of Ecological Alert and Recovery Thailand. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pincham, and thank you all for the questions. I think that most of you have answered the first question I wanted to ask. So I would like to ask you to add if you have something to add to the question. So the question is how you and your group promoted behavioral changes that use science and information to limit air pollution and exposure to harmful emissions. And what are some key success factors and what are the challenges you face in your efforts? Yeah? Professor Philip, may I start with you?
Yeah, thank you. So we have a strategy of which is unusual in air quality science and in air quality citizen science. There's two aspects to it. We want to be big and important, and we are using in our communication. We need to attract 10,000s of people that are interested in participating in our projects. In our last project, about 5% of the population in the country was directly involved in the project. So we want to be big. And there's a good reason why we want to be big. Because when you're big, you're important. You're considered to be important. And so we are using like modern communication strategies, media. We're using commercial advertisements on TV. We're using billboards. We're using to promote our project. And therefore, because so many people participate, it's on the radar of the media. And so in our last project, when we announced the results of our measurement campaign, we were headlining the national TV news with our results. We were on the front page of the papers. And the message you convey is by being so big and that air quality is important. And that's the message we want to convey. So by being so big, you get media attention and you promote the message air quality is important. People need to talk about our project. People need to talk about it on the train. People need to talk about it on weddings. And the more people you involve in your project, the better. The more you are the talk of the town. So that's one. Being big is important from to get your message across. And once you're big, you get a free amplifier in the media for your message, for the message that air quality is important. Once you're beyond the threshold, you're all over the place. You're all in the news, and then you get free media coverage. So this is one aspect that is very important, and that requires a clever communication strategy. The second aspect, where we are maybe different from other projects, is we are, if you look at how air quality is communicated, the first message or the first sentence of a press release, the first slide in a PowerPoint is you should be interested in air quality because you can die, because you can be ill from it. And that's what we want to avoid by all means, because it's a very bad communication strategy to attract people. It's not, people don't have to participate because they should be rational or they should be concerned. No, they should participate because the project is fun. So our message is air quality is fun. And fun meaning interesting. So we try to make this a positive project. You can help science. The air quality in your street at your house. So you what's in it for me? So why are people participating in a project? Because they want to learn, because it's fun, because they're part of a community, and that's what you want to amplify. And so in our communication, we are positive. You are helping out science. It's fun to measure. And so last time we had 20,000 measurement kits, and there were 50,000 candidate participants. So we had way more participants. It's like we make it like trendy and sexy to participate in a citizen science project, and that's what you need. And once people, so we don't say anything about the impact of air quality on health. Only when people are in the project, when they participate, then we slowly feed this information to them. And that's how we do the nudging. That's how we silently, without knowing, they are embedded in the project, and just by participating in the project, they also inform themselves. And so we noticed this from surveys, that people that participate in the citizen science project, that they read other articles on the internet, that they read articles about environment, about climate on the internet, and we don't have to tell them. Just by participating, you're awakening this interest, and you are raising awareness, and you are raising and this is the nudging part, right? So you try to involve people in a positive project, and just by participating, they are made aware. They are slowly, without even knowing, they make themselves aware. And this is the strategy that we use.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a very kind of very fashionable thing to do. Huh? That's how I feel. Thank you very much. And you probably have seen some of the questions in the chat box as well as in question and answer feature of the platform. And there are questions for Arif as well as for impacts, outputs, as well as some of the challenges you have faced during the implementation and some of the success factors. Arif, may I ask you to respond to my question? You're muted, Arif, I think. Your microphone is muted, Arif. We don't hear you. Maybe while technical problems are solved by Mr. Arif, may I ask Pinchon, Ms. Pinchon, to respond to the question, and we'll come to you, Arif.
Yeah. To the questions, I think it is quite depend on and based on the experience that we have done in the past. The first experience that we have involved with pollution monitoring happening in between 2005 and 2007. After we have formed up environmental group, we received lots of questions from the affected communities who living in neighboring from petrochemical complex. And what they want to know is about the chemical in the air and the health impact because they did not receive any answer or receive information from the government and from the industry. So once we receive lots of questions, we decide to find the answers for the communities by working with some experts from America and from Greenpeace. So we conduct some air sampling for chemical analysis. And at that time, we found more than 20 volatile organic compounds in the air that the local people breathe in every day. So when we found out the truth or the fact like that, we produced a report to and launch the campaign. What we have done after that is we organized the press conference by organizing a multi-stakeholder press conference to release the result to general public and media because we want to raise the awareness of general public and to raise the concern of the responsible agencies. Then we present the report to the government and responsible agencies to follow up, and then we follow up the results. This is very impactful because once we can find the truth that what chemicals are in the air that local people have to breathe in every day, we organize some actions, organize press conference. We present the report to the government. It means that we have to produce the reliable quality of data set that based on the citizens' side to prove the chemicals in the air. This is the first experience that we have learned according to our campaign. So we found that when we want to fight with pollution problems, it is very important that we have to produce the reliable, good quality of data set, and we can use those data sets to be strategic information And to dive forward some change, the data set that we produced by air sampling at that time is really impactful because the government, both environmental agencies and industrial regulators, they start to monitor the volatile organic compounds in that area. And the other years, the National Environmental Board, has issued the screening level of volatile organic compounds. Then, in that area in Rayong province, that is the first time that the government installed VOC monitoring in many places. So this is the starting point that we see that the power of data, the power of the scientific truth is very important. And now we are working on this again on about the PM 2.5 problems. Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much. And there is one question for you, Pinchom, in the question and answer feature of the platform, and I hope that you would be able to respond in the box. Yeah. So, Mr. Arif, is your microphone okay? I'm very sorry about it, but you can respond in the question and answer, feature of the platform as you have done already. And I will come to the next question, and this is the final question from all of you. And the final question is, how could you work with some of the other groups in the session, as well as the other government and private sector partners to really scale up your efforts? And I really would like to ask this question from all the panelists. And Philip, may I ask you to kindly respond to the question?
Yes, thank you. So we have now run 4 projects, which we have this mass scale participation, 3 on air quality and 1 on climate, on drought and heat in cities. And we have come up with like a, how we would say, strategy and plug and play version of how to do this Curious Noses citizen science project. And we're now looking at implementing this in other cities. And it's been implemented in Dublin already. But obviously, you could also implement this in South Asian cities and in big cities. So this is one thing. We'd like to export this approach, this knowledge, and maybe organize these Curious Noses projects in Delhi or Jakarta. Or secondly, in terms of impact, so we have the people that are participating. That's where we have an impact. But obviously, we involve in our projects, we involve media partners, and there you raise awareness with journalists that air quality is important. And we also involve the Environmental Protection Agency, because the Environmental Protection Agency uses our data. And so in citizen science, it's very important to have high quality, to gather high quality data that can be used for science, that can be used for the improvement of air quality models, etc. You don't want to, people, we have the experience that people want to contribute if it makes a difference, if it makes, so you shouldn't keep them busy with during the citizen science project, but you should collect hard data that are used by science, that are used by the EPA. And so our data is used to improve the air quality models, the regional air quality models. And these regional air quality models, they are used in kind of management plans. And without our project, I think the air quality management plan for the next 10 years, so this has been set up during 2 years ago. Without our project and without the attention it got, it would have been less ambitious. And so by doing so, you have an impact on the policy, and we notice this already. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that sounds very good. And Miss Pinchot, may I ask you the question about your partnership with private sector, government, and some other partners to scale up your project idea?
Yeah, thank you. I think citizen science is a very important approach and successful in environmental campaign and protecting health. But this approach will be uh, successful or achieve our goals when we have to work together. It is like a collaborative approach as well. So when we use this approach, we need to consider that uh, the who are the stakeholder of our practice or our project. Like in the industrial area that being hit by industrial pollution, we have to work closely with communities in the area, and we have to look for or seek for some collaboration or some support from academics in that area as well. And we have to convince the responsible governmental agencies, both the central level and the local level. Otherwise, we cannot meet the success in our campaign. So based on our experience from the past to present, from the Rayong province to Sabusakhon province, and we have extended citizen science activities to many provinces in Thailand. We have to convince our stakeholders to believe in collaboration and to believe in the power of data, as well as to have to closely communicate with the media, uh, both mass media and now online media. So this is the key success and uh, the important tactic that we have to realize about that. So in conclusion, I think the citizen science is very important to identify the issues of concern of the multi-stakeholder, particularly the affected people. And we have to based on bring the issue being focused by the media and general public based on the reliable information and data, and to work with to try to convince the collaboration of the multi-stakeholder, including the private sector. Even the private sector, uh, most of them are polluters, but we believe in like a constructive dialogue or constructive method to work together to convince them that if they can reduce the emission, it is much better uh, for their business or for their investment. It is for some example that why we quite convinced ourselves that citizen science is it is a very powerful and useful approach to protect on environment or to work on environment. Yeah.
So thank you so much, Pinchom. And I just would like to ask Arif whether your microphone is okay now. We are not hearing you. Okay, so I'm so sorry and my apologies. But Mr. Arif has responded many of your questions in the chat box in question and answer feature of the platform. And thank you everyone for your great communication and also a great speech and sharing experience with us. And there are so many questions in the question and answer feature as well as in chat box. And I think some of some of the questions have already been answered. And thank you again, Professor Maisman, Ms. Darif, and Ms. Pinchon. And over to you, Shaira.
Thank you, Alta, for a very insightful discussion with the panel. Before the session ends, I would like to thank everyone who have joined us today. For Dr. Eric Sussman of IGES as serving as a host for this session, Alta of UNICEF Mongolia for moderating the panel, Professor Philip Maisman of University of Antwerp, Arif Darmawan of Indonesia, and Panchom Saitang of Earth in Thailand. So we've seen three different citizen science initiatives related to air quality and climate change. Crowdsourcing data is very helpful in improving how we address air quality and climate change related concerns. We've also now seen examples of initiatives which could help inspire our work toward raising awareness about air quality and climate change and creating nudges across various sectors of the society. Before we end today's event, we'd like to share with you the visual summary of the key points during the plenary session. Okay, so I'm sharing the screen. If you could see in the screen, we highlighted, the plenary speakers highlighted that we must strive to accelerate clean air and climate change actions, improve public health, and deliver equitable and fair solutions. They also mentioned that air pollution disproportionately impacts women, children, and marginalized groups. The World Health Organization also released a new set of air quality guidelines this year. While this is not legally binding, it could help provide guidance for countries to develop their own standards. Collaboration among different sectors, including the government, the academe, the private sector, and civil society, is important to deliver equitable and fair solutions to air quality issues and climate change. Um, So these have been discussed during the plenary session. Um, Tomorrow, for our second day of the Sustainable Inclusive Solutions for Air Quality and Climate Change virtual learning event, we'll be having a session on co-learning for community of practice on management of emissions from coal and other heavy industries, and another session about building political support with stakeholders engagement and strategic communications from good policy to good politics. We hope you'll join us tomorrow and on Thursday for a more insightful discussion about air quality and climate change. Thank you very much, and good afternoon and good morning to everyone.